Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this call this afternoon. I'm Sarah Jose Adiogun, and we'll be starting in exactly 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining and for joining on time. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I think this is good. Yeah. All right. Good evening, everyone. How are we all doing today? And welcome to the second edition of our webinar series, A Comprehensive Guide to Studying Abroad for Parents and Students. You're all welcome today. And before we begin, it will be interesting to know where we are all connecting from. So in the comments section in the chat, I would appreciate if you just take a few minutes to just tell us where you're connecting from. It will be interesting to see where we are connecting from. So we'll just have about 1 minute to do that, and then we move to the next section. Thank you. Okay. So we have people connecting from Edo State and Lagos. You're welcome. Oh, we have Abuja, Edo State, Abuja.
United Kingdom.
Okay, we have United Kingdom. Okay, so let's keep it coming, and we'll be moving in the next 30 seconds. We'll be moving to the next activity.
Which listing is that? Which country is
Right, so let's keep it coming and let's move ahead. So today we are having a conversation with very interesting speakers, experts in the field. And we'll be starting with the first speaker, which is the managing partner for TISU Consulting, Sarah Jose Adiogun. She will talk about the webinar, and she'll also delve deep into conversations on the commitments that needs to be considered before you travel abroad. And the next speaker will be Temi, who will be discussing on studying in the USA and United World College. And we'll also be hearing from Oare, that will be talking to us on study, work, live in Canada. So without wasting much time, let's make welcome our first speaker, the managing partner TISU Consulting, to tell us about the organization, tell us about the Building Bridges webinar, and then to our main talk for today. So Sarah Jose Adiogun, you're on.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and it's so great to be talking to you again today. Today, I'll just tell you a bit about TISU Consulting, who is organizing these webinars. And for us in TISU Consulting, it is about supporting Nigerians to travel with dignity. Because like we say, nobody needs to die to travel. We are a consulting firm here in Nigeria, and we are into several services: advisory and consultancy, digital transformation, environmental sustainability, government relations, organizational development, and migration advisory. And the Building Bridges and Shaping Migration webinar series is part of our migration advisory program offerings. And today we will be talking to you about understanding your commitment and why you need to prepare to travel. Because a lot of times we find out that people have a lot of issues after they travel. You see that children go abroad and the parents did not make adequate preparation. So before you even go abroad or send your child abroad, what are those commitments that you need to make? How do you choose an educational institution that your child needs to attend? How do you plan for your finances? Because you see many people saying, oh, I will only plan for the tuition. When the child gets there, suddenly you realize that, oh, I did not plan for feeding, I did not plan for transportation, I did not. So how do you plan financially, especially in this time where the exchange rates are just fluctuating and going crazy all over the place? You need to be prepared and ready to meet the financial commitments of sending a child abroad. After the child gets there, post-travel commitments, what could this potentially be? And then we'll take it from there. I want to also welcome my co-presenters today, Temitope Kpogo and Owari Ehiemwa Ochui. They will delve deeper into their different segments on USA travel and Canada travel, so that we give a lot more robust understanding of how to prepare and how to ensure that when we do travel, we travel with dignity and we travel at the right time. So what are the pre-travel commitments that we're talking about? First of all, you need to know where you are going. Many people just say, we get people come on our webinars, they fill the form to talk to us. And when we say, where do you want to go? They say anywhere. If you don't know where you want to go to, it will be difficult for someone to actually understand your peculiar requirements and support you adequately. So first of all, you need to know where you are going, because when you know where you are going, you will also understand that you need to learn about the culture, the language, the lifestyle, the local laws. I was very surprised when I think earlier this year, a Nigerian student was repatriated from the UK. And what did he do? He went there and he was killing squirrels to eat. Is it squirrel he went to do in London, or he went to school? So all the investments made by his payments suddenly went down the drain because he did not understand the local laws of where he was going to. So you need to understand the local laws. You need to understand the climatic conditions of where you are going to so that you can prepare adequately. Either you travel with the warm clothing or light clothing, or you go prepared to buy it when you get there. And then there is safety considerations. Which country are you going to? Which school are you going to? What kind of safety considerations must you have in place based on where you are going to? Because there are some areas where you go to where suddenly you are confronted with racial issues. Some you are, you are maligned even without doing anything because you are in Nigeria. From the airport, you could potentially have problems. So you need to understand all of these things. And really, when we talk about understanding the culture, it is key that you understand the culture. I had a colleague in those days who went to the Netherlands, and he asked someone there, how was your night? And it became a very big issue that led into investigation and all that. Because in Netherlands, you don't ask people how was your night. You can say, did you sleep well or something, but not how was your night. Because and she took offense. So you must understand the culture, the cultural affiliations, so that you do not misstep or offend others just because of the cultural differences of where you are. Also, we must understand we must understand that you need to prepare for your health. I know someone who had traveled to go to school in Scotland, Aberdeen, and when he got to Aberdeen, suddenly he developed heart issues. Fortunately, in the UK, before you go, you must pay the health surcharge, the NHS surcharge. And with that, you are entitled to free medical services, although you've paid for it beforehand. But in areas where they don't have that, what kind of health insurance do you need to put in place such that when you get there, you don't suddenly find yourself in a difficult situation because you do not have access to health care? Because health payments are expensive in a lot of countries, very expensive. And if you are not properly prepared, it will be difficult for you. So what are the necessary health checkups you must do before you travel? What is the health insurance or the policies you need to put in place? Because at times it might be cheaper for you to do a travel insurance here that will cover you for a few months, some 3 months, some 6 months, before you settle down in the country where you are going to and put a health package in place for yourself. And then you must ensure that you have the right and relevant travel documents to enter the place where you are going. Because we've seen situations where people get to their countries of destination and they are turned back, either because their visas are fake or one thing or the other. And we've had situations where people come to us to say, oh, we want you to appeal this visa. And we ask questions. You didn't even go to the embassy. Oh, they said they would do it for me and all of that. And we see situations where agents are taking people to the cleaners. We must understand where we're going to, understand the legal implications, and ensure that we put all the right documentation in place to get it done. And then for those of us going to study, how do you choose the right educational institution, especially if the child is coming back home to work? You must ensure that what do you want to study? In what schools is it available? What are the financial implications in terms of tuition and all that? Can I afford it consistently in the next 4 years? Some institutions, the tuition fees increase every year. while some, the year you enter, that tuition fee is static for the 4 years. So all of this is information that you require in terms to make informed decisions. And then you must look for what are the extracurricular activities available in those locations, because all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. We must ensure that we are grooming well-rounded individuals for life in the future. And we must look at the ranking and the reputation of these institutions, because at times you might just be shortchanging yourself. Going to a very expensive school that does not have the ranking or reputation that you really do require. So you must match the payments you are making with the ranking and the reputation, the accreditation status of the institution you are going to. And there are different rankings you can use. You can use the Times Higher Education ranking. You can use check what where the Ivy League school status, or the Russell Group status, or whichever ranking you want to use. Just ensure that you are paying the right amount for the right school and the right reputation. And then funding opportunities. It doesn't matter how rich you are, every leader helps. What funding opportunities are available in the school where you want your child to attend, so that your child can potentially harness those opportunities. You can get funding for scholarships for sports. You can get scholarships for academic excellence. You can also get scholarships based on where you come from. There are some scholarships that are open to Nigerians. There are some, if you are in Nigeria, you can have scholarships that are open to those in less advantaged areas. You can have those available to those from oil-producing areas. You just need to understand what scholarships are available for you in the school you are going to, or for you based on where you are from, or for you based on your financial situation, so that you can harness those opportunities and use it for the betterment of your family. And for those who are going for masters, who have excelled academically here, there are a lot of scholarships that will aid you to go and do your postgraduate studies abroad in such a way that it minimizes and reduces the burden and impact of the financial outlay required for you or your sponsors while you go there. Now, you will also need to plan for your finances. And what do we mean by that? Apart from the tuition and fees, which you will need to pay, you need to understand the full ramifications of the requirement, because in some schools, you need to do internships which will be paid for separately. You might need to have some traveling done as part of the course, which you will need to pay for, because if you are studying courses like geology and you need to travel outside the UK to visit geological formations or installations, you need to understand that full financial fees and tuition that you need to pay. Where the school increases tuition annually, you need to prepare for it and plan for it. And then you need to have your living expenses, because it's very key. You don't want to take your child abroad and abandon them abroad. And then there are many of us that want our to stay abroad, or want our children to stay abroad after they are schooling there. Many people pay the fees, but when it comes to paying for that extension visa, they don't have the money. You need to plan for it, to say, okay, how much is this going to be? Because it is in your financial planning that you will be able to harness the full benefits of the opportunity that you are giving to yourself, to your children, or to your child, or your spouse even. Now, I've spoken about financial aid. You must look for it. It comes in different places and styles. I know that people coming from the north and people coming from the south have a lot of financial opportunities and grants available to them. And all over Nigeria, we have access to scholarship opportunities for those who excel academically. So, post-travel commitment. After you've gotten to the country, what kind of things must you think about that you must understand even as you go there? As a parent, you must ensure that you are able and available to follow up with your child and the school activities. Because your child is going into school in a place where they tell you that, oh, this child is an adult, we cannot give you their results, we cannot do this. And many children have gone abroad, spent 3 years, taking a lot of financial resources from the family, and they come back home empty-handed. how do you ensure that you can plan for regular visitation or the child comes home, so they understand the sacrifice that you are making as a parent. And then it's not just about taking the child abroad. I've seen people, you send your child to Canada and for 4 years you don't visit the child. There is mental and emotional torture. The child needs to have a safe place. You understand? So you must be able to at least once in a while visit the child. Are there relations or friends in that area? Any family, you know, you must have a way to ensure that your child has emotional stability through that process in college. And then as a student, you must be aware that about the laws governing the land and comply with the laws. Beware of peer pressures, especially for us sending our children abroad and all of the things going on abroad now. We need to actually educate our children and talk to them about peer pressure so that they do not get there and get into the wrong group. There are a lot of things going on there, but we always continue to pray that even as our children go there, they will continue to remember home and remember where they came from and that. And then they must also remember that they must focus on their studies. It doesn't matter that you graduated there. If you graduate with a low GPA, getting a job after school becomes a bit of a problem, and you find out that all of the investments will not reap the required benefits. So you need to ensure that you focus on your studies, graduate with the right grades, and come home in a way that we will all celebrate and be proud of you. So for conclusion, I'm just going to say, going abroad requires thorough preparation, not just preparing to go, but ongoing support to ensure that we are able to get the maximum benefits for this investment. It is not a small investment. Do you understand? Because putting this kind of money into education for your child or for your children and not getting the required outcomes can be a bit frustrating, because you suddenly find out that as families you have not saved, you've used up all of your savings, and there's nothing to show for it. So we must balance the academic, financial, health, safety, and emotional considerations to ensure that we come out successfully in this venture and investment that we are going into. And today, those are the things that we will be talking about, and those are the things that our consultants will be talking about, even as I hand back to Benjamin to introduce the next speaker, quickly. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for such an insightful session. It just shows that traveling abroad, there are a lot of a whole lot of activities. What are you going to do there? Your schooling, there are a lot of things that you need to think about. You're going to school, you're going to work, you're traveling for whatever. There are a lot of things that are involved in your stay outside your native land. And it's good that you should do such research before going abroad. And so in line with this, we'll be welcoming Temi Bogo, that will be talking about studying in the US and United World colleges. So he will be bringing his insight as a consultant and giving us this preparatory knowledge, as our first speaker has talked about, what we need to know before getting there, what are the things we need to put at the back of our minds before we take certain decisions. So Temi, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Seem to have some technical problems with my video, so my face doesn't seem to be coming on. Yeah, so I'm going to be speaking about introduction to studying in the US, and also talk about the different degree awarding institutions. Then I'll talk about the different clusters of universities. If we can share this slide, yes. I'll also talk about the different clusters of universities, and then just walk my way through I would end with talking about choosing the right university and the right course. Okay, so in terms of undergraduate students in the US, I think there's a large percentage of international students coming into the US who are sort of within the undergraduate student category. United States is a leading country for international students to go to study because of the English language, also the economy, being the largest economy in the world. As we speak, there are over 1 million international students studying in the United States. If we move to the next slide. So in terms of institutions awarding degrees, you've got about 4,500 higher education institutions in the US. So what that means is that you've got a lot of choices in terms of picking the right university. And again, they come in different types. You've got your community colleges, which are comparatively cheaper than your conventional higher institutions. You've got your historical Black colleges that tend to cater for the Black communities. You've got Hispanic serving institutions that are maybe heavily prone towards using Spanish as their language of instruction. You've got, again, doctoral granting universities. Those are those who sort of focus on sort of PhDs. So if we move to next slide. Just to add quickly, it's very important that don't let the name of a school put you off. So you could hear Boston College, for instance, which is separate to Boston University, but it's also a degree awarding institution, even though it says Boston College. I think obviously they didn't want to name it after the other more famous Boston University. So in terms of the ranking of US schools, and this has linked to employability as well. The Ivy League universities obviously have a higher ranking. These are the sort of what you call the big names, as it were. The stronger universities with a higher reputation, the universities that also have, in terms of employability, these are the universities that are sort of where employers will go to look for sort of writers and the next generation of talents. And then you've got another cluster which is called the Black Ivy. So those are mostly historical Black universities. So even though there are lots of historical Black universities, you've got the top ones there, Morehouse College, where I think that's where George Martin Luther King went to. You've got Howard University, which is very famous as well, very strong university. And then you've got the public Ivy. They're very strong universities there, University of Michigan, University of California, University of Texas at Austin, University of Colorado as well. These are also very strong universities, strong reputation, and most of them would have specialist areas where they sort of that reflect their strengths and is linked to the ecosystem of the city where they operate. So like California, Silicon Valley, computer science will be strong there to reflect that area. Then Texas will be strong in things like engineering, oil and gas development. In terms of entry requirements, these schools have sort of, there's no central requirement in terms of like what you have in the UK, where you maybe go through UCAS and then there's a central point. So schools would sort of vary in terms of their requirements. It's always advisable to, if you have a particular school in mind, to look at their website, look at what they're offering in terms of entry requirements. You may need to look at it well in advance as well, not like 3 months to when you want to go to university, so you can prepare yourself much early. But the admission will look at academic qualifications, will look at leadership qualities, will look at extracurricular activities. So it's an holistic approach. It's not just how many A1s have you got. It's much more than that. It's sort of very holistic. If I can get the next. So I've tried to list some of the things that they will take into consideration. So high school results, for instance, sometimes you see the last 3 years of secondary school, they want to see your results for that year. A lot of the schools will also look at your WAEC results, for instance. Some of them are keen to look at that. I think Harvard will look at, for instance, have you done A levels in the UK? They're happy to look at it because they feel it's sort of one way you've been scrutinized as well. Some schools will want SAT or ACT, so you have to look at the specific exam that the school they're sort of interested in. Then they've talked about extracurricular activities. So sports, for instance, that's a big one. I don't know if you remember way back, a lot of Nigerian athletes used to come from the US because they've gone on sports scholarship. So that's something that's still very big in the US. Sports scholarship is still one way to get into universities in the US. Any act of leadership, community service, voluntary work that's been done at a high level, quality, impactful voluntary work. Those things can also support your application. Recommendation letter from your teachers, your employers, if you've done any work, paid or unpaid. And again, a personal statement which will show why you want to go into that university, why you've chosen your course of study, and why you feel that university is the right fit for you based on your long-term career. For specific program like visual arts or music or dance, for instance, they may want to see, or even things like architecture, they may want to see things you've done in the past, like a catalog of your work to show that this is what you're passionate about. Or for those who are keen to go into like fashion designers, there should be something to show that you've met that requirement. Some schools would sort of insist on you writing IELTS or any sort of standardized, recognized English test. If you come from a, let's say, if we use Cameroon for an instance, now there's English-speaking part of Cameroon, there's a French-speaking part of Cameroon. So if you've gone to school in the French-speaking part of Cameroon, then they may want you to write IELTS as a way to show that you've got proficiency in English language. If we move to the next. Yeah, so I've just focused this on the Ivy League schools, but it's sort of connected to every other school. It's connected to every other school. Basically, if I say I want to maybe go to, I don't know, Harvard, for instance, to read engineering, although I don't think a lot of people don't believe Harvard is better. If I say I want to go to Harvard for engineering, then I've got to show that I've got to show, for instance, that I've got passion in that subject. So if I say I want to be a medical doctor, for instance, and I'm scared of needles or I'm scared of blood, or you're sort of squeamish when you see blood, then you sure that's the right area for you. So you've got to show passion in what you're doing, first of all. You've got to show your commitment to that subject throughout your high school. That's why sometimes they want to see the last 3 years of school, your results to capture the last 3 years. You have to research the school you're planning to go into as well. Just have a read through the school's website. Who are the lecturers? What kind of students come there? What sort of modules will I be studying? Show interest in what you're doing. Also find out what the school offers. Is there study abroad option, for instance? Is there exchange programs? Are they part of like some kind of Erasmus program? Anything that makes them a bit extra. You've got to know all of this as well. Have they got online courses? Is it you have to do it in person? What professors are on their faculty that you would like to study under? Again, you've got to have a social life as well. So tourism, for instance. So if I say I want to do architecture, for instance, I went to Florence in Italy, the architecture of Florence inspired my dream to become an architect. So even though it was an holiday that you've gone to, I think it's also important to find how all this link up into the application you're trying to make as well, because there are certain cities that reflect certain era of architecture, and you can use that also to support an application you're doing. Or if you want to, I don't know, journalism, for instance, and you're in New York and an event happens, or you're in any part of the world and an event happens, and you're able to say, oh, I was there when this happened, and I could see the news playing out in real life. Those sort of little things can also be very important. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the undergraduate degrees in America, there's the option to come into an associate degree where you study for 2 years. And then if you want to develop further to like a bachelor's degree, then you've got an option. Most times they'll do it for courses like I've put there, dental hygiene, medical sonography, air traffic management. It will be mostly for courses that have got some kind of vocational element. So you could do like a 2 years program quickly and then get into work, a paid job, or if you want to continue to a bachelor's degree, you can go on to that as well. Okay, next slide. So again, I've talked more about the associate degrees. You can get some mainstream universities would also offer this sort of program. Some schools would accept you if you've done an associate degree in a different school. They will accept it as an entry requirement for you to sort of cross over. I think with associate degrees, you've got to make sure that is the right one for you. And if you want to follow your studies much later, that option is available for you. Okay, if we sort of move on to the next. Again, I've put the different types of associate degrees there. So again, things like humanities, applied sciences like dental health, social care, construction courses. Most times they're linked to areas where there's like a shortage. So you can get people trained up quickly in their vocational skill within 2 years, and they can get into industry and plug gaps that may exist. Okay, if we continue, please. Next slide. So for a bachelor's degree, usually 4 years, there's a mixture of general courses that would be, I think in Nigeria, they call them GS courses. So there'll be like generic courses that are like faculty-wide or school-wide courses, and then there'll be core courses that reflect the curriculum that you're doing. Some schools may extend it to 5 years, and then you leave with a master's in engineering. So it's mostly drawn around, obviously, integrating learning across the curriculum and also broadening the scope of students' knowledge beyond just their core subject. Again, some bachelor's degree may have combination like business and French, or computer science and psychology and all of that. So some schools would have those sort of combinations as well, or law and business, for instance, as a law degree. So if this is something someone is keen to do as well, then the question would be, what do I want to study? Which school do I want to study it? What's the course or the module outline or the course outline? How is this being taught, for instance? How many modules would I do per term? Or what's the entry requirements? What are the relevant subjects if I want to study this course, so that you make sure you've got to do this in advance so that you know you have the sort of requirement. What sort of grade? What's the minimum grade requirement as well? The bachelor's degree, this is one that's more sort of, I think it's more popular than the associate degree, because obviously at the end of this, you can go on to do a master's, or you can go on to get into paid employment, or you could just, I don't know if you want to turn back to Nigeria, or want to move to a different country. It's much easier when you have a first degree than one associate degree. So it's more recognized globally as well. Next slide. Okay, so I've also put some material on the United World Colleges, which is basically, I think this is one of the things that came up in Europe after World War II, where they were trying to strengthen civic education among the youngsters who were growing up in Europe. This was the idea of a German education scholar who was trying to create a school where people can be taught, apart from academics, they can be taught civic values as well. They can be molded in a way that they can influence global affairs as they go on to build career post-study. So the idea of it is obviously from the slide, you can see that it promotes things around uniting people, nations, culture, to promote peace and like a sustainable world. As it were, there's about 18 schools and colleges currently in 4 different continents. There's one in the UK, in Wales, I think somewhere around Glamorgan. They've got one in Hong Kong. There's 3 around Africa as well. The focus is on the 16 to 19 years age group. The understanding is after you finish your secondary school, you come here, do your exams, and then get the entry requirement to go to a university anywhere in the world. Most people here would probably from here then go on to the US. One thing to say about United World College is that it's not tied to your financial situation, so to say. So they've got a lot of funding from general supporters. So if you have the knowledge, if you have the skill, and if you have the intellect, you'll be able to attend this kind of school, irrespective of your economic situation, as it were. They also have short programs on leadership, sustainability, things around change, those sort of things. Okay, next slide. So I've put the locations where they have this college around the world. You can see in Africa, they've got it in Swaziland, Tanzania, and I think that's. And then you've got obviously Thailand, Netherlands, Mexico, just scattered around the world. What you get from this as well is the fact that the people that will come to this school will be from all parts of the world. So you'll be in a school where you're interacting with students from every continent possible. So obviously that's something that can obviously create some kind of globalized thinking for youngsters from the age of 16. You've started having that sort of interactions. You're meeting people from all over the world. Then it shapes your mindset towards civic engagement. So I've just put the locations there in case anyone sort of is interested. We can have further discussions around this as well. So the exams that they do would be the baccalaureate, the IBDP program, and they've put the subjects there that you can sort of the subject sort of combination. So it could be language and literature, it could be science, it could be mathematics, it could be art. So you've got freedom to choose the subject that you want, or the pathway, as it were. And this is linked to your future career you have in mind. But I want to reiterate this point again about not letting fees put you off. If you're interested in looking at this, then I'm happy to speak to anyone who's keen to look at this further. Okay, next slide, please. So in terms of entry requirements, they've talked about things like intellectual curiosity. How interested are you in things happening around your immediate environment? Things like global warming, for instance, things like gender equality, for instance, even things like artificial intelligence, the things happening around you. How engaged are you with this sort of things? They talk about commitment to your own values. So they believe that as a young child or someone who's coming of age, you should have some values you believe in, and how committed are you to it in terms of upholding your own personal integrity. And then obviously they have their own values as well, which obviously would be around things like equality, respect for others, shared mutuality, those sort of things. And how committed would you be to their own values as well? Social competence, you react respectfully with others. Resilience, in fact, a lot of job interviews now, you're having questions on resilience. Adults, they're asking, how do you deal with a difficult situation? So at this age, they're expecting you to be developing some sort of resilience in dealing with difficulties. Again, academic robustness. How are you able to cope with the demand, the rigor of schoolwork, and then what will be placed on you in terms of the study requirement? Are you able to, because if you're able to cope here, then you'll be able to cope when you get to university. So the selection criteria would vary from country to country, again, to reflect the intrinsic culture of that particular country. So the way someone in Nigeria would be judged, for instance, may be different from the way someone in the UK may be judged in terms of their application. But if you're true to yourself and you're committed to your own values, then you have an advantage in terms of not trying to pin your experience or your life story or whatever. There are also things like minimum grade requirements. So you cannot fall below a particular academic performance in addition to this other selection criteria. So that may be something to look at for as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of choosing the right university or choosing the right course, as it were, I've talked about things like the student's previous academic performance. If I use myself as a personal example, for instance, I'm not great at mathematics. So if you tell me to do engineering, for instance, then I don't think that bridge would probably be constructed because I wouldn't have the flair to even walk around civil engineering and those sort of things. So what subject are you strong in? What's your previous academic performance in terms of your grades? What subjects are you doing really well at? Proficiency in English language. That's the language of business now. It's the language of globalization. So there's an expectation that you should be able to have a good grasp of English language up to a particular level as well. Again, their preferred subject choice for the future. So if I want to do microbiology, for instance, then the subjects I'm taking at secondary school should align with that long-term dream that I have. The ranking of universities as well. I don't want to disrespect the school, but it's a natural fact of life that schools have different reputation in terms of employability. So you have to factor that in when you're trying to make a choice of university. If I choose a school just because it's affordable, for instance. At the end of my study, how would that sell with employers? So you got to factor all that in again. The academic profile of the university staff, most American universities will tell you the number of Nobel Prize winners that they have. They'll list it there as part of their reputation. And some of them would even grade it like differently. So maybe the Department of Physics, and they may tell you we currently have 7 winners of the Nobel Prize and all of that. Again, you have to look at the alumni. Who are those who've passed through those universities? What are they doing now? And those sort of things. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So I've just put some thoughts there around things to sort of avoid when you're making an application to a university. Just generic things like leaving your application very late, not being authentic. Some people will go to the internet, download a personal statement, and then use that for an application. That's not being authentic to yourself. Not even reading about the school, or not researching about the school of interest. Sometimes ignoring the entrance requirements. Some schools may say they need you to have maybe 6 distinctions, for instance. So if that's what they're asking for, that's what you need to present. You don't need to start having discussions. I think the first speaker covered some points here, so I'm not going to belabor those ones again. The other things I would say would be checking your spelling and your grammar, for instance. I said, don't let parents take the lead. The point is, if I want to study something unusual, if I want to study a course that's not maybe fashion, this is what I want to do. I don't think a lot of Nigerian parents would be excited about that. But if that's what I like to do, maybe I've seen something about it. Maybe I've thought I could link it to all that things that are happening within the Nigerian culture now, or within Black culture generally. I want to link it to Afrobeats or something. So I have a passion already. But if my parents take the lead in my application, they may not be able to communicate that passion. So next slide, I'm getting ready to round up. So again, I think I've covered all this again. So if we go to, I think, one more slide. Okay, I think that's me done. So just to round up, I'll just say, let the student be as authentic as possible, and don't try to copy someone else. Be authentic to yourself. If you need support, speak to us. We'll be able to help out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Temi. This was really wonderful. This is information very important for people who are interested in going for undergraduate, looking at the US and the United World Colleges. And he made us understand that it's not just because you want to travel abroad, so you look for any school, but you have to look at the acceptability of the degree you get there and the employability also. So this is something that that goes into the preparatory process before you choose any of these schools. And he also made us understand that before you pick any school, you need a long time of preparation to get there. There are things that you need to consider before you get there. To get to the best of schools, you need a very long time. You have to start considering your grades from now to prepare you to get into the schools that you desire. So thank you so much, Temi. Please, we'll be accepting questions in the chat room. Just drop your questions there. And at the end of all the session, we'll be answering a few of the questions. And just keep the questions coming in, and we'll do our best to answer them as much as we can. So at this point, we'll be going to ORA, that will be speaking on Study, Work, Live in Canada, a guide from Labor Hack. ORA, over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for staying with us on this webinar. It's been a lot of useful information, and yeah, I hope that it's helping you in shaping your decisions on how to proceed with your studies. So my name is Oarihema Ochui. I'm the founder and CEO of Labor Hack. Labor Hack is essentially a platform that connects professionals, particularly those in the construction industry, to local and international opportunities. And essentially, we partnered with loan providers that are able to offer loans of up to 60,000 Canadian dollars to help young candidates or students who are interested not only in studying in Canada, but also working and living there as well. So the program, the loan programs that we have are very flexible. They're very attractive. And essentially they've been curated in such a way that will help you to not only study in Canada, but essentially be eligible to earn a work permit once you're done studying, and thereafter to apply for permanent residence. This opportunity is probably best suited for candidates who are not more than 30 years old and are interested in studying a shorter program, like a 1 year, 2 year program before entering into the workforce. You'll probably agree with me that 4-year programs often mean, more tuition money, right? So if your fundamental objective is to just kind of build a new respectable life in Canada, this is probably an opportunity you want to pay attention to. And of course, if it may not be a direct fit for you, you may want to stay on and listen in case it's something you can refer to others as well. So yes, so please proceed with the next slide. Thank you. So in essence, Canada is looking for you. There are so many openings in Canada right now, just given the high labor shortage in the country, an aging population, younger people that are looking for different type of jobs aside from the more traditional roles. And so there's a widening skills gap. And particularly for Nigerians, it has been a very attractive destination. In 2022, Nigeria was Canada's 4th top immigration source country, welcoming more than 22,000 Nigerian immigrants into the country. And of course, we can say that there are probably over 100,000 Canadians of Nigerian descent that currently live in Canada. And because we're quite partial to the skilled trades, we've tried to highlight, some of the opportunities, particularly for those of you who may have studied engineering or a construction-related trade, or who may have even had an interest in, just like the blue-collar trades, carpentry or welding or whatever. But you felt that, the environment you live in was not conducive for exploring that sort of pathway and creating that sort of lifestyle. Well, the news we have for you is that in Canada, actually the construction trades are in such high demand and pay quite well. So on average, power technicians earn about 60,000 Canadian dollars. Crane operators earn up to 100,000 Canadian dollars. But we are here today not just to talk about the skilled trades, but also other programs we have as well across STEM, healthcare, tourism as well. So we'll be going through that with you. Next slide. So essentially, as I mentioned earlier, our goal today is to help you not just go to Canada to study, but to create a pathway, a legitimate pathway for you to work in Canada and live in Canada if that's your intention. So the program that we're discussing today will get you into Canada on a student visa to study a program. And thereafter, you can then legally apply for a work permit. And then after that, you can process your permanent residence. Of course, the process would look different for different individuals, just depending on your unique backgrounds. But essentially, we've done our best to work away from the end goal back to the beginning by selecting courses that give you the highest chance of being able to achieve this goal of studying, working, and living in Canada. Next slide, please. So the primary institution that we work with in Canada is called George Brown College. It's based in Toronto, Ontario. And of course, again, we wanted to quickly highlight some of the skilled trades that George Brown offers that might be of interest to some of you. So we have carpentry and renovation, we have mechanical technician, CNC and precision machining, we have construction engineering, electromechanical engineering, heating, refrigeration and AC, electrical techniques and welding techniques. There are other programs as well, which I'm going to highlight very quickly, but the duration for these ones that I've mentioned now is 2 years. So they're 2-year programs, which means less tuition fees. And of course, there are various intake dates, right? So there's the fall, the winter, the spring, and then the fees typically range from between 18,000 to about 27,000 Canadian dollars. Next slide. Now, I did mention that there are other courses that are eligible for this loan program. So we do have some courses in STEM, So applied AI solutions might be what you're looking for: blockchain, cloud computing, computer systems, cybersecurity, mobile application development and strategy. In healthcare, we have behavioral science, dental office administration, health information management, and office administration, health services. And in tourism, we have tourism and hospitality management, food and beverage management, and food tourism entrepreneurship. So these are all courses between 1 and 2 years, right? So in order to qualify for these programs, aside from the age bracket that I mentioned earlier, which typically will be between 18 and 30 years old, you should be proficient in English. The good news is that if you're coming from Nigeria, for instance, you essentially do not have to take the IELTS or TOEFL or any of those exams. George Brown College recognizes Nigeria as an English-speaking country. So you just need to upload your diploma, your certificates, obviously in English. And then you would also need to have a passport. So if you do not have an international passport, we do not encourage you to start the process yet. We encourage you to go get that first, because the process moves along very, very quickly. And of course, you would also need to fill out an application form and pay your application fees. Carry on. Next slide. So in terms of the journey, it's pretty straightforward. So you'll start out by submitting a school application. So right after this webinar, a form will go around where you can indicate whether or not you're interested in exploring the Canadian opportunity further. We'll then reach out to you to basically just walk you through the process. But it will start out with you filling out a school application form. And so once you fill out this form, you would need to then pay an application fee. The application fee basically signals to George Brown College that you're serious and that you're ready for them to take a look at your application. So they will do that. And if you're successful, then you will get a positive school admission decision. Typically, this process would take maybe a couple of weeks, sometimes months with more traditional institutions, but with George Brown College, it takes only about 2 weeks to get a school application decision. So in 2 weeks, you get that decision. After that, you will then proceed to the loan application. You'll fill out some documents. Once you do that, you'll wait for your loan approval. So with the loan approval, if you get a positive nod, what you would then be asked to do is to pay a loan cash collateral. Now, this cash collateral is not proof of funds. So this is not to just show that you have money in your account. This is actual money that will be paid to our loan provider, and is going to form the basis of your the first payments that are made out for your living expenses while you're in Canada. So this is money that's actually going to be spent for you, right, while you're in Canada. Now, the reason why we ask for a loan collateral is just to signal seriousness. This is not a jackpot opportunity. So it's not an opportunity for you to just try and find your way into Canada and thereafter do something completely different. This is for people who are very serious about their study and who want to go to school in Canada, earn a degree, and then join the workforce. So we insist on collecting a cash collateral, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. So if you pay the loan cash collateral, you will then receive a letter of acceptance. This letter of acceptance is what you can then take to the embassy. It basically will state that your tuition and your living expenses have been paid in full, and that essentially you do not have any expenses going into Canada. This is typically a requirement that a lot of people are unable to meet, and which is why many people are denied their student visa. So it should help you get over the hurdle of obtaining a study permit to be able to study in Canada. However, should you, for whatever reason, not get that study permit, a refund of the cash collateral that you've made will be put back into your account within 48 hours. And then, of course, if you are successful and you get the study permits, then you'll get fully enrolled in the program and be well on your way to studying there. Next slide, please. All right, so now once you study in Canada, there are a few things to note. First off is that it's very, very common. The culture in Canada, particularly for foreign students, is to get a job while you're studying. So that's actually very much encouraged. So you can work up to 30 hours a week in Canada, and you can basically make some money. Now, in total, given their minimum wage, you should, if you're working a full 30 hours or so a week, you should be able to make about 1,000 Canadian dollars every month, right? And this money can be used towards your feeding, your living expenses, or whatever. Now, some people make a lot more, so it just depends on the type of job that you get. Anyways, so once you finish your studying, you can then apply for a work permit. Typically, the duration of the work permit you get will depend on the duration of your program. So if you did a 1-year program, you might get a shorter work permit than if you did a 2-year program. But in any case, you can apply for a work permit, and that will give you a legitimate pass to find a job, or to get a job in Canada and start working. Next slide, please. And so while you're working, you can then start your PR application process. And typically the duration for this is 2 years, but then over the next 5 years, you will have a PR. You will need to spend a minimum number of days in Canada to be able to retain that PR, typically about 730 days over the 5-year period. But thereafter, you can then apply for citizenship and so on and so forth. So as you can see, this is a very straightforward pathway to not just get into Canada to study, but to work and live there as well. Of course, the duration, the timelines and all that will vary depending on the individual and their unique backgrounds. Next slide, please. So you may have a few questions, and we're going to go into the Q&A section now. But one of the questions, and this is really just to recap, is the fact that we have various courses already curated that you can pick from to be able to go through the journey that I described before. So there might be other courses you have in mind. If they're not part of the courses I've mentioned now, we probably would not be able to assist you. There are some master's programs as well, and we'll direct you to a link where you can go to find those. But the purpose of this discussion is primarily to focus on the 1-year, 2-year programs, which are suitable for very young people who have just finished maybe secondary school, and, are looking to, get into university, or maybe you finished university, earned a degree, but you're still below 30 years of age, and you finished recently, hopefully within the, not more than 5 years ago. You could also use this pathway to just get a second degree and, go through the process. Now, in terms of the application fee that you need to pay to George Brown College for them to look at your application, it's about 110 Canadian dollars. And then, of course, the cash collateral I mentioned earlier, on average, it's between 9,000 and 15,000 Canadian dollars. Again, depending on the type of program that you're studying for. So 1-year programs tend to be cheaper than 2-year programs, obviously. So in terms of the loan itself, the loan is very, very patient. So it's a 7-year loan with an 11% annual interest rate. So what this means is that, you're not under undue pressure to, you're not distracted while you're in school, essentially, to pay back this loan. In your first year of school, your living expenses will be completely taken care of by this loan. So you wouldn't have to worry about accommodation or about feeding or any of those things. And if you're doing a 2-year program, both your first year and your second year tuition will be covered by the loan in its entirety. So I'll talk a bit more about a typical loan scenario towards the end of this session. Now, I had talked briefly about the ideal candidate profile. I'll just go over that again. So if you're looking to earn a diploma program between 1 to 2 years, you typically best ages will probably be between 18 to 25 years, up to 30 years is still acceptable. Your grade average needs to be decent because it's a very competitive program. So typically about 75% plus. And then you shouldn't have any more than a 5-year education gap between your last official degree and this program that you're applying for. Now, if you're doing postgrad, again, age range is between 20 to 28 years, up to 30 years. And then the same grade average of about 75% plus will apply for both secondary and tertiary. Please proceed to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, just a bit more about Labor Hack and why we're qualified to do this. As I mentioned, we're working with very, very strong loan providers to bring this opportunity to Africans. We currently have a pipeline internally of about 4,000 professionals. With our loan providers, we have exclusive admission seats of about 300 plus with George Brown College. And we've been operating essentially between Nigeria and Kenya. And, you know, this is something we do quite well. So we're very excited to meet you. We're pretty sure you will have some questions for us, which we'll be happy to answer in the Q&A session. And during the Q&A session as well, I wouldn't mind going over a typical loan scenario for the Canadian opportunity, if time will permit. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ore. This was wonderful. One of the questions that just piqued my mind during this, your beautiful presentation was, someone was asking, are you saying that this opportunity is not for people above 30 and 40? So
we don't mean to be ageist. We apologize. It's just the nature of the program. So the reason why there's an age limit is because our focus is on getting candidates to PR, permanent residence. And we find that the age bracket that we've chosen is the one that would essentially give the highest chances of that happening. So the Canadian application process is based on a point system. So your age also means that, you know, points are kind of deducted. The older you are, the less points you get, more or less. So unfortunately, there is an age limit, which is 30 years. So, yeah. Okay, so
another question is, since this is very much dependent on the age, so beyond this considerable age limit, what are the opportunities for people above that, like 40, 45 and above? Are there opportunities for them like that for Canada?
Not at the moment, but we'll keep you posted. It is something we're working on. We're trying to get the age limits extended, but for now, it's pretty much fixed. But yeah, we'll let you know once we do have opportunities for older candidates.
Okay. Someone is asking, what is the what happens in a case where there are inability to pay back that 11% in scenarios like that?
So where the candidate is unable to pay their loan?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, the way the loan program is set up, we're essentially expecting candidates to be working and living in Canada. And Canada has very strict laws around loans and credits and things of that nature. So your credit score will be greatly affected if you were to default on your loan. This will make it quite difficult for you to access certain opportunities in the country. So it's not recommended. So we only recommend candidates who are pretty sure that they can pay back the loan to do so. And we're creating a situation where it'll be very easy for you to do this because, first of all, the programs that we've curated are in high demand in Canada. So if you're already a foreign student in a different country, you'll agree with me that, you know, sometimes it takes a bit of time to find a job outside after school, right? This might be because the course you studied just doesn't have that much opportunities available in the market. But the programs I have mentioned are in high demand, very high demand in Canada, which means that it should not take you time to get a job after school. The average entry-level salary as well is also pretty high, which means that there should be no reason for you to default on your loan repayments. So typically, your loan repayment sum, especially if you're doing a course that's about maybe 50,000 Canadian dollars or so, your loan repayment sum would be a range of between 700 to maybe 800 Canadian dollars. Now, you would need to start paying back your loan while you're in school. But if you permit, I would like to just quickly go over how that would work. Is that fine?
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so say you decide to join the September class. I mean, that's almost nearly impossible now because we're almost there. But say you wanted to join the September class and you did get a loan, and you got into Canada in the month of September. It's considered a free month, for lack of a better word. So you will not be required to make any loan repayment sum. So essentially, the amount of money that you put in as your cash collateral will still be intact, and then the loan balance will still be intact. So if you got into a program that costs about $56,000, that's the loan balance that you would have in the month of September. If you put in your cash collateral and say it was 20,000 Canadian dollars, right? That would still be intact. Now, from the month of October, we'll start making certain deductions. Now, the principal repayment sum would probably be about 500 Canadian dollars. That's how much you're supposed to pay back starting from October. Now, what we will do is that we will deduct about $200 from the cash collateral that you put in. This would bring your loan repayment sum down. And then because in the first year, we promised you an allowance that will cover for your living expenses and accommodation, we would then deduct that loan repayment sum from that allowance, right? So to explain this very quickly, in the month of September, because there's no loan repayments being made, your loan balance is intact, your cash collateral is intact, but we will pay you your allowance, right? And your allowance will be about 1,700, 800 Canadian dollars. So to settle into school, you can use that money for feeding, you can use it for accommodation or whatever. From the month of October, we will start to deduct, right? So there will be a loan sum that we'll deduct, and we'll also deduct money from your cash collateral to bring that loan sum down. Now, instead of asking you to pay that loan sum, which could be about 700 Canadian dollars, we will simply deduct that sum from the allowance that we're supposed to pay you. So instead of paying you 1,700 from the month of October, we'll pay you about $900, right? Or roughly $1,000 instead. And that's what's going to happen for the next 11 months until December. So we'll pay you an allowance of about 1,000 Canadian dollars. Then if you're doing a 2-year program, from the second year, you will need to pay that loan repayment sum of about 700 Canadian dollars, by which time, hopefully, you would have a job that you're doing, or you may have saved some money from your allowance to subsidize your costs. And yeah, you should be able to pay that sum without a problem. And that's the same amount that you're going to pay for the next 7 years. So it doesn't go higher. So when you get a job, when you get promoted at work, when you still pay back just about 700 Canadian dollars for the next 7 years. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful insights. I think one more question for you before we go to the questions for UK. You mentioned during the presentation about a skills gap in Canada, and in your presentation, you also mentioned some courses that probably we can say prioritized, sort of. Is there, how can we know these skill gap so that when people are applying for it, they can identify those skill areas where they should actually focus in? Is there any way we can get that? Yes.
Okay, so I mean, there are NOC skills. So if you do some research, right, on Canada, and you type in like NOC, I think it's NOC trades or NOC skill trades, you should be able to see a list of all the skill trades that are in high demand in Canada. Now, what we are offering is, what we're basically saying is, we've looked at that list, we've curated that list based on demand, and we are telling you that you can apply for any of these programs and essentially thereafter, continue your journey of working and living in Canada. So our own courses are also part of that list. There's a wider list, but that wider list may contain programs that we are unable to support you with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, before one more question just came in for you. They're asking any recommendation on a work route for older applicants.
So we are working on something that would allow for direct employment in Canada. But it's still work in progress. So we'll probably be back again to do another webinar if you would invite us. But yeah, so that's still something we're working on. As soon as it's ready, we'll let you guys know. We'll hold a new webinar to explain how that works. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Oware. This was wonderful. For those of us that still have a lot of questions to ask and would like to be contacted for further inquiry, there will be a form that will be displayed for you to key in your details for you to be contacted for more inquiry. So we have a question for UK, and it's would you recommend getting a job to cover costs of schooling abroad, or is it too unreliable?
The UK or the US? I could answer for both countries. I don't mind, but
okay, that would be great. UK and
yeah.
the US.
Okay. What I'll say would be it's very unreliable because most of the students who are at the risk of destitution right now abroad, I think this is the plan they came with. So they were hoping that they'll get a job and then work, put some money aside, pay for their fees and all that. And sometimes they come 6, 7 months, they've not been able to get a job. So they're not able to meet up with their living expense and all of that. So it's extremely dangerous. It's not impossible, but it's extremely dangerous to just hope that you would work and pay your I don't know, your sustenance and all that. If you've paid all of your fees, for instance, and it's just maybe living expense, even at that, it's still really, really difficult. But most people would hope that they'll complete their fees and then their living expense. You're only working 20 hours a week. So it's not a lot of hours to make a lot of money. And if you increase your hours, you're spending less time outside the library. That's going to affect your grades. So it's a sort of catch-22 situation, really. It's not something I'll recommend. Not something.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we have another question. And the question is, what are some of the most common challenges that people face throughout the US application process, and how can these be best navigated?
I think the big problem is the financial constraints. You've put some money aside in Naira, you start an application, and then the exchange rate changes. Immediately you need to look for another extra 4 million, extra 5 million, extra 6 million. So finance is a big one because obviously you've got to pay your fees, you've got to sort of sort out your proof of funds for living expense and all that. Is that when they're making the application or when they get to the US? What was the question?
More in the application process.
I think yes. I think it's finance as well. Finance is a big problem. 2, you've got to use a trusted agent. You've got to use a trusted agent because they'll be able to vet your documents properly. And if there's any problems, they'll be able to correct it before it goes on to the sort of the embassy stage. So I think the challenges most people would have is they leave everything to the agents to sort out, and you're not sure what the agent is doing most of the time. So that's another challenge. It's a recurring problem we're seeing now. When you start talking to people, they say, "Oh, I applied last year. I used an agent, and this happened." So yes, bank statements as well. The integrity of bank statements is a big one. Don't let anybody lie to you that it doesn't matter. We can beef up. That's the language it is. We can beef up the bank statements. Again, you got to think that bank statements and the banking sector is all linked up now because of things like counterterrorism. So banks have a duty to be transparent with international partners. So if you've not got the right proof of funds, it may be better to just hold on for a bit until you get that right. Most agents have been misleading people and saying we can work something, and that becomes a problem with the application. So it's all linked to finance. Not choosing the schools properly as well, not researching the cities. If you're moving to a new country, you've got to be careful as where you're going to. You got to think of your support network as well. So there are some people, they've arrived at the country of destination. It's now time to leave the support network they have there to go to where they've been given admission, and they refused because they didn't ask the right questions. So I don't know, you choose somewhere. I don't like disparaging areas, but you choose somewhere in Dakota, for instance, North Dakota or South Dakota. Beautiful. Now you've got to America, your support network's in Houston. You've had a great time in Houston. You've seen maybe 2 or 3 other classmates in Houston. It's now time to go to Dakota. You're thinking like, I want to be around these people. You see the point? Because you now see why you need to have a support network around. So sometimes people don't research the areas, don't look at what kind of support have I got there. Some people want to be in a place where they can get access to Nigerian food because that's what they know, that's the culture they know. So those sort of things. In terms of application, finance is key. The finance is key. I'll just leave it at finance. I think every other thing can be worked on with advice, but finance is key. If you've not got the funds, for instance, you've not got it. And most times people still want to travel when they've not got the funds. So that can be
All right. Thank you so much, Semi. So there's a question for, since we heard about the age limit with Canada, I wanted to know if such applies for the US.
No, because I think what you have to understand is the reinvention of man, as it were, is part of the American dream. So America wouldn't just, in a way, write you off, as it were, in that sense of like, oh, you're this age now, you can't come into the US to study anymore. The point is, it's all about your personal statement. It's all about your personal statement. We've got politicians who, at the end of their tenure, decide to go and do a master's in public policy in Harvard. Most of them will be in their late 50s, even early 60s. They've got to do it. It's not been a problem, really. It's more about what's your story? Why are you trying to do this now? Are you able to sell yourself to the school to say, I'm coming to do this because of maybe as a mid-career option? Do you see the point? Or I'm trying to develop a career in consultancy. I need to equip myself with this skill. So there's no such restrictions, but if you're a particular age and you're coming to do undergraduate studies, then there may be questions asked around maybe, for instance, how old are your entry requirements? If you understand what I mean, if you bring in WAEC result from 1961, something like that, you know what I mean? So that would be a concern. But in terms of age, no. For undergraduates, they may want to know what you're trying to do. So your personal statement will be very important. And the course of study. A lot of people study law at a first degree. So if you're coming to study law at a very advanced age, it's not on you. It's expected in some schools as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Temi. And the last question for the day will be going for Canada. So we've been hearing 18 to 30, and someone is curious and is asking, are there any underage limitations, like can a 12, 13, 14 or 17-year-old apply for your program?
So essentially, you just need to have finished secondary school to be able to apply, right? And so you need to have a WAEC, certificate. So if you do that under the age of 18, that's also fine. Also just want to clarify that these age restrictions are for this particular loan program to give you the highest chance of getting to permanent resident status. So it may not be a true reflection of the Canadian educational system itself. So just want to clarify that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And someone is asking, I think you probably clarify this at the end of your talk, but I should just ask the question. The age restriction, I believe, is peculiar to province and university and not Canada in general. So the person, I believe, wants to know if it's peculiar to province, university, and not just a true reflection of
It's
Canada.
peculiar to our loan program, right?
Right.
Not to the educational system, whether it be a province or otherwise. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying that. So as we mentioned previously, here is a link on the screen. You can fill the form indicating where you want to migrate to. The purpose for it is also in the chat room, so you can get that. And we are available to contact you and give you as much clarity as you actually require. So once again, thank you so much, Oare. We are so glad to have you here with us. And thank you so much, Temi. And at this point, we'll move over to Sarah to give us a word while we call it a close. Thank you. All right, Sarah, over to you.
Hello. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. And to Temi and ORA, thank you very much. The session was really very informative. We got, I'm sure the participants got enough information to enable them fill the form, and get the necessary support they need to migrate with dignity. Because for us, it's not about anything, it's about discouraging irregular migration, discouraging human trafficking, and giving people the opportunity to migrate with dignity. And like we say, you don't need to own a bank to travel. Follow up with us and we will link you up to opportunities that will open doors into other countries in a way that you travel, you settle down, and you live your life with dignity in the country that you migrate to. Thank you very much. Until we meet again next month, I will say have a wonderful month and do remain blessed. Thank you very much, everyone. And don't forget to join our next program, our webinar, which will be migrating with the family. If you want to migrate with your family, husband, wife, children, or bring your aged parents along with you, what do you need to do? What kind of information would you need? We will be providing that in our next webinar. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Tell your friends about us, tell your siblings about us, tell your colleagues about us, and tell them to join this webinar where we will provide information that will prevent them from ever being scammed again. Thank you very much and have a great evening.